Well, the 11th Annual World Government Summit is underway in Dubai. This meeting is in the same category as the World Economic Forum Summit and COP28 and all the others that you've heard about. Yes, yet another globalist group coming together to conjure up new and exciting ways to manipulate and ultimately control the population. But let's take a look at what this organization claims to be. The World Government Summit organization is a global, neutral, nonprofit organization dedicated to shaping the future of governments. The summit, in its various activities, explores the agenda of the next generation of governments, focusing on harnessing innovation and technology to solve universal challenges facing humanity. Oh, I'm sorry, they seem to have left out the part where they actually are the ones exacerbating the universal challenges facing humanity. I think it's pretty safe to assume this little get-together is yet another way for selected so-called leaders to talk about how to meddle in further events behind closed doors. Joining us now to weigh in, comedian and TV host Jay Dyer. Jay, thanks for being with us. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Alison. Glad to be back. We had a great conversation last time, so I'm happy to talk again.
Well, thanks so much, Jay. I enjoyed it myself, and I'm looking forward to this one. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on yet another global get-together by the members of the big club?
Yeah, it's funny that, they do all this pretty much in the open now. A lot of these steering committees, a lot of these groups that were meeting for many decades were kind of semi-private, semi-secret. I think that now they feel like they've got enough power that they can just kind of uncloak. One of the global elite writers that I've covered is Madame Blavatsky, and some of the people in her circles talked about ISIS unveiled, and that the New World Order, the secret government, even 100 years ago, would have to be secret and then could come public. They could come unveiled. They could be out in the open once they felt like they had enough power behind their agenda. And so now we see basically nonstop open world government meetings, Davos, Bilderberg, what we're talking about tonight, the summit. I mean, all of this is just out in the open. And the crazy part is that they will put out in their lectures and in their clips everything they want to do. We want to have DEI, SDG to totally control the corporate world, the finance world. We want to have tracking, tracing. We want to have, vaccine passports. We want to have everything that we in the, I guess you could say, conspiracy world have talked about. Yeah. Everything in every dystopian novel and story. Yeah. They've chosen the worst parts of every bad dystopia, right? Whether it's Philip K. Dick or whether it's 1984, Brave New World, and they put that into a hodgepodge, and they literally put it in every one of their talks and sermons and say that, and I use sermon literally there because these are sermons for a new church, a new cathedral, a new world religion that is the New World Order. Yeah,
you're absolutely spot on, Jay. That's so true. They openly brag about their evil and nefarious plans for humanity. It's just disgusting, but it's good at the same time because it does allow us to have some insight into what they have planned for our future, though it's baffling to me. Many people still refuse to believe that much of this is even happening, but they do tell you for sure, and they're really proud of it. It's funny because I actually just saw a report this morning from Fox that now the globalists are telling people not to read books like George Orwell's 1984. And gee, I wonder why that is. They don't want you to, catch on that they are actually working in lockstep with what's outlined in books like that. So it's quite incredible. It also makes me wonder what the next thing is going to be, right? We know they have quite a bit up their sleeves for our future. Do you have any ideas on what the next manufactured crisis might be?
Yeah, well, before I mention the crisis, you're absolutely spot on to talk about the banning of literature and controlling education. In fact, you can go back 100 years ago to Bertrand Russell, almost 100 years ago, when he was writing about what the future technocracy would be. As one of the planners and one of the promoters of it, he says in, I think it's Impact of Science on Society, he says that in the future technocratic dystopia, you're not going to read Shakespeare, you're not going to read the Bible, because you're probably not going to be able to read. Yeah. Because he says they will dumb down the population. The population will be a kind of herd-like, idiotic mass that won't be able to function, and they will be either dispensed with or used in some sort of, matrix battery style, controlling mechanism. Who knows? But they did plan this again, 100 plus years ago, the very world that we're going into. And you can see a perfect continuity between what people back then, H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell, what they were writing, and what Klaus and other people are rolling out right now via their writings and via their open public world government summits. So what the next crisis might be? Well, they tend to kind of have multiple crises, I think, in their hand, in their deck, and they throw down whatever seems to fit the needs of the time. So we had, for example, Anthony Fauci, if you remember, Trump's going to face a very, very tough pandemic when he comes into power. He predicted essentially what happened, not because he had a crystal ball, but I think that this was planned. So I think that they probably have something like a pandemic too. We know that Bill Gates has said, "Oh, there's going to be a new crisis. We've got a pandemic too coming. So we've got to be ready for the sequel to get the numbers down and get that population." I mean, it's literally what Bill Gates says in his talks. Tedros was at the recent Davos meeting. He said that COVID was disease X part 1, and disease X will be the part 2. So they keep signaling that perhaps the next crisis will be some sort of, scamdemic part 2. But they could also roll out race riots. They could roll out false flag. They could roll out, anything that could, disrupt the next election or something like that.
Yeah, very true. It seems like anything is on the table at this given point in time. So I guess it's just, a waiting game. But we shall see. I'm sure, whatever it is will be terrible. And it's terrifying to think what that might be. But time will tell. By the way, your impressions were fantastic. I don't know if I've ever heard you do those before, so thank you for enlightening us with that. But I think the bottom line is truth is truly stranger than fiction, as we know. I did want to ask you about this Spanish artist, Alicia Framis, who will apparently be the first person to marry a hologram, perhaps another pandemic we should be concerned about, AI. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there were a lot of good jokes that I'm going to refrain from using because they ended up being a little R-rated. So I don't want to make your program R NC-17. But you could imagine what types of jokes would have been made here. But it's funny to me that she didn't choose a young, attractive dude. She chose like a older boomer to be. Anyway. I mean, if you're going to have a hologram, at least make the hologram hot, right? But
right.
Yeah, I think this is sad because, I talk a lot about predictive programming, and what that is really programming that's put into fiction to kind of condition us to where the system wants to take us. And if you saw Blade Runner, the original, we had replicants, which were essentially synthetic companions and sex bots. That's been in a lot of sci-fi for a long time. But in the new Blade Runner that came out a few years ago with Ryan Gosling, Blade Runner 2049, they specifically had this idea of your iOS becoming your companion, your lover. And she was, in that case, pictured as a hologram. So, fiction often tells us where the establishment wants to take us. And I think that with this case, we're seeing kind of the rolling out of not just this with a hologram companion. There was Spike Jonze's film Her, where, you have basically the same plot of somebody married. Joaquin Phoenix is married to his iOS, and it's Scarlett Johansson. They've been putting this into fiction to kind of get us into this mode of being basically married to our tech devices so that we don't have real human relationships, real human contact, real human reproduction. Ultimately, this ties into a narrative, a plan to make sure that people don't reproduce and they get the numbers down, to quote Bill Gates again.
I think you are spot on. I think that's exactly where this is going. And I just pray that the Lord returns before we ever have to see any of that really affect us or come to fruition. Terrifying.
You don't want an AI boyfriend, Alison?
I don't. No, I'm good on that. But thank you for your inquiry. We are almost out of time, Jay. But before we go, I know you have an upcoming show, Conspiracy Theory and Comedy. It sounds awesome. It looks great. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think Jamie Kennedy. You've talked to Jamie. He's a friend of mine, and we're going to be doing a live event. It's a 5-hour event in Los Angeles. It's if you want to get tickets, it's you can go to my Twitter, my X account, and it's pinned up at the top. You can get the tickets there. It's a 5-hour event, lectures, comedy, stand-up, all of that, all wrapped into one, basically a party. But it's an infotainment party, so you're going to learn things and you're going to have fun.
I love it. We've got to party while we can before the globalists have full control over our lives. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today and weighing in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alison.
Take care.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.